Inside UCC Church. I have something different to say than other people. I have asthma, and I've had trouble breathing here because people like to wear scents. Some people wear scents on their body, like hairspray, deodorant, perfume, aftershave. Some people like to put it on their clothing in the washer and the dryer. All of those make it hard for me to breathe. When I went to the afternoon session, I moved away from one person because she was scented. Next to the man, he was scented. Moved back a row, somebody came and sat there. They were scented. Somebody else was scented. I moved back a row, I left. Please consider this. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Adam Smedberg. I represent Church World Service here in New England. Wanted to come and ask you guys, first of all, thank you for everyone who's swung by our table and has told me how many great stories I've heard today about the support you guys have given us over the years. Thank you so much. But I have a favor to ask you. In the past, we've been able to work, we've had a great partnership with Woodford Congregational Church to be our depot here for the kits and supplies. This year, though, they have had to step aside because of some work that they're having done at the church. We need a church who can step in and be our depot here for Maine. We get over 1,000 kits here in Maine donated every year. Since I started with Church World Service in 2017, we have had to distribute over 500,000 of these kits, hygiene kits, emergency bucket kits, education kits to support our neighbors in need. I'm getting cut off, so thank you. We'll hopefully see you at my table. Swing by when you can. Thanks.
I'm John Cunningham from the Trinitarian Congregational Parish in Castine, and I'm here as a lay delegate. And I have an interest in music. And 3 years ago, there was a workshop conference. It was conference-wide about music. And one of the wonderful things that they had was a music exchange where people from different congregations brought their old music, their tired music that they didn't need anymore, and they made it available to others. And I have some energy available to try and organize something along those lines at some future point if there's anyone else who would like to be involved in that endeavor. And if you want to get rid of your music, please send it to the Bagaduce Lending Library, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
You see how they just move away when I put my fingers up? What power!
My name is Robert Breckenridge, and I'm a lay delegate from the Second Congregational Church in Newcastle. And I'm also representing Global Ministries. A couple years ago, I retired as a public school teacher and volunteered with Global Ministries and ended up going to teach at a small Protestant college, a partner church of ours in Zambia, in the middle of Africa. And I've heard so much this morning about small churches declining and withering and shrinking. I want to tell you that Christianity is booming in Africa. Hundreds of millions of new Christians all the time, and it's a remarkable experience. And I thank the Global Ministries for sending me. And if you want to know more about the whole program, please contact me either through Reverend Blood's office or through the Newcastle Church. Thank you.
I'm done.
At this time, I would like to recognize the Reverend Josh Fitterling and ask Josh to come forward. As we say, what we need is here to be the church. And so we gather here as the main conference, but we are also called together as a people of God across the country and beyond in the United Church of Christ. And so one of the gifts and responsibilities that we share is to gather in, to meet, to worship, to pray, and to discern together in the presence of the Holy Spirit as the General Synod of the United Church of Christ. This summer, we did all of those things in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Josh was one of our delegates from the Midcoast Association, and he is here to tell us a little bit of that experience. And so, welcome, Josh.
Jeff, you pretty much took my opening remarks there, which is perfectly okay because it's never a bad thing to be reminded multiple times of what we're doing here. That this business that's set before us, it's important that we remember to pray our way through it, worship our way through it, have those moments of reflection, those moments of connecting with one another. Because after all, everything that we're doing, whether here, whether in our local churches, whether at the national setting, it's all about the ministry. It's all about the people that we work with. It's all about the ministry that we are called to do together. And it's never a bad thing to be reminded of just how important it is to worship through the business that is before us. And at General Synod, there is certainly much joy in just the relational aspect of it. That is one of my greatest, the things I love most about it. Being there, connecting, getting inspired by what's happening elsewhere. And also then engaging the business, which, yeah, sometimes can be less than inspiring, but important, because it's all part of how we keep doing this ministry. And in there, too, there can be inspiration. So I wanted to highlight just a few of the things that came up this year at General Synod. The first is that we had to elect two certainly important positions at the national setting. The first was the election of Reverend Karen Georgia Thompson to the position of Associate General Minister of Global Engagement and Co-Executive of Global Ministries, and that was met with overwhelming support. The second was to consider the renomination of Reverend John Dorhauer for another 4-year term as General Minister and President. The discussion and the discernment around Reverend Dorhauer's reelection, it contained a number of challenges as this gathered body was discerning what the needs are of the UCC, discerning our direction forward. So during the conversation that took place after the motion on his election, there were some challenges in the midst of that, raising some concerns. One notable mention was that this idea that it's time that this position is held by a woman. And that's something that Reverend Dorhauer himself brought up in his renomination speech, fully aware of that. And as folks stood up, sort of wondering and questioning where the Spirit might be leading, yes, there were some concerns about John's leadership, and there was also much praise for the ways in which he is that pastoral presence and the many gifts that he offers. It was a tender time as we talked our way through that and discerned our way through that, and in it, Reverend Dorhauer even agreed to not run for a 3rd term, leaving room for the Spirit to move the UCC into new directions. So when it came down to the vote, Reverend Dorhauer was reelected by a narrow margin, about 65%, needing 60%. So it was a hard time, and as we know, this ministry thing's never completely 100% smooth sailing. It isn't always easy, but we discern our way through it, caring for one another and moving forward. So after praying our way through that discernment process, we had a number of things to do as our General Synod. Just highlighting a few of the resolutions that came up, we affirmed a relationship with the Iglesia Evangélica Unida de Puerto Rico and called for a committee to work on strengthening that relationship and deepening this renewed relationship. We recognize that in southern New England, there will be a new conference by the merger of the Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut conferences, provisionally called Together as One. I believe that's still the working title. What is it? Southern New England Conference, even better. So we affirmed that new way of moving into ministry. We also picked up a number of social justice topics, including affirming the Latinx ministries and the mental health network of the UCC as historically underrepresented groups, making sure that their voices are heard at the table. We talked about climate and climate change and compassion and justice needed for those who are seeking refuge. We talked about how now, perhaps more than ever, it's important to stand up against hatred and bigotry. These were all in the forms of resolutions. We addressed 8 prudential resolutions, 14 resolutions of witness, and I will not go into the details of all of those today, thanks be to God. At the very end, the next synod, General Synod 33, was announced that it would happen in Kansas City in 2021. And as we ended, the Maine conference, I think, has something really to be proud about, as the vice moderator for the next General Synod is sitting in this very room, and it is Mr. Bob Sandman of North Windham Union Church and our treasurer. Can we give him a hand? Yeah. So Maine will have even a bigger presence at the next General Synod. That's my attempt at a brief sort of overview and reflection. If you'd like to read a 7-page report on it, I have copies and I can email it to you. Or if this is enough for you, that's fine too. All in all, it was important work and holy work as we live out our life together as the United Church of Christ. So it was my pleasure to be there, and thank you for allowing me time to reflect.
Thank you, Josh. I'd now like to recognize the Reverend Darren Morgan. Among his many responsibilities as our Associate Conference Minister, he is staff and support to the Resourcing the Local Church group that does wonderful ministry in our midst and part of how we live out our oneness as the conference. And so, Darren, welcome.
Is there anyone here who, planning to build a new house, doesn't first sit down and figure out the cost so you'll know if you can complete it? If you only get the foundation laid and then run out of money, you're going to look pretty foolish. Everyone passing by will poke fun of you. He started something he couldn't finish. So writes Eugene Peterson in The Message, Luke chapter 14, verses 38 and 40. Jesus calls us to count the cost, to engage in an act of budgeting when embarking upon a path to discipleship. Yet this budgeting often occurs within a logic of abundance, not one of scarcity. We are all well aware that it is getting increasingly harder and harder for the churches and the Maine Conference to fund your ministry needs. Although there are those who wring their hands, lamenting the past and thinking that it will be the next pastor who brings us back to the glory days of long ago, there is ministry to be done here, now, during this dry spell we call the present. From my perspective, the question is not, can just getting by sustain us? We must ask ourselves, what possibilities are we missing? You see, this is a wonderful opportunity for innovation and new ministries. Some of you will recall that the Reverend Chris Davies, our keynote speaker at annual meeting a couple of years ago, said, "Desperation allows for innovation." To that end, the Maine Conference is committed to assisting churches in innovative vitality. During our To Gather Into One capital campaign in 1998, a percentage of funds raised were placed in an endowment to benefit future needs of the conference, of the churches in the Maine Conference. Now, the principal amount remains intact, all $400 and some odd thousand, but annual interest is dispersed in the form of grants to help fund a variety of program needs and services. Now, representatives from each of our associations make up our Resourcing the Local Church Committee, who meet quarterly to consider grant requests from churches and ministers from around the Maine Conference. Some of the ways the endowment income from Resourcing the Local Church help are: expand existing services within the church, aid in the development of new programs within the church, aid in the development of new services within the church, aid in the development of new congregations. Other services may also include providing emergency funds for churches, provide training for interim ministry, provide services for a crisis counselor to assist in local church conflict resolution, to sponsor laity, clergy, and youth participation in wider mission activities of the United Church of Christ, assist lay leaders and clergy in attending developmental leadership training workshops, assist churches in addressing current building needs or future building possibilities, and finally, to support conference programs that directly benefit local churches. Now, for those of you who attended today's affinity lunch on Resourcing the Local Church, you would have heard stories of how grant funds have made an impact on ministries from around this Maine Conference. For more information on Resourcing the Local Church and to obtain a grant application, go to the Maine Conference website. Let us not forget that in these changing times, the cost of ministry increases, but God's love of us and God's presence in our midst never changes. May God bless the ministries in the Maine Conference United Church of Christ. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren, and thank you to the Resourcing the Local Church team for all of your work. I'd now like to recognize the treasurer of the Maine Conference, Bob Sandman. Bob will move and present to us the budget for 2020 for the Maine Conference. Before he does that, I would like to give thanks to Bob, to the Finance Committee that works with him, to our financial staff, and to the spirit that lives and moves in all of these. They have been doing wonderful work. It has been a commitment of the board in this year, in our committees and the staff, to increase the transparency and clarity of both financial reporting and planning. I hope that you have felt that. A lot of that has to do with the leadership and the work that these people have done and the sight they have to see the ministry and the mission below the numbers. And so, Bob, take it away.
Thank you, Jeff. On behalf of the Maine Conference Board of Directors, I move the approval of the Maine Conference United Church of Christ 2020 budget. All right, Jeff is going to ask me if I'd like to speak to the motion, and yes, Mr. Moderator, I would like to speak to the motion. How lucky you are. This morning you heard a dynamic presentation by a keynote speaker with the last name of Sleeper. You finish the joke yourselves. This is the 2019 annual meeting, but my task today is to present to you, let's see if we get the slide coming up here soon. While I'm waiting for the slide to come up, I will say that also this morning, sometimes the jokes just write themselves. This is the 2019 annual meeting, but I'm presenting the 2020 budget. And 2020, of course, means perfect vision, and it's not like I'm going to ask you, does this budget look better with this personal faith lens or this social justice lens? Right? The answer is both. Also this morning, Deborah Blood told you that when you get to see the budget documents, they're going to look beautiful. You are not going to see them in this presentation. It wouldn't look terrible to try to put the spreadsheets up in these slides. There are no hard copies here. You were supposed to look ahead of time on the website, so I'll just mention the website now so some of you can go ahead and look it up before we get to that point. It's AM as in meeting 88.maineucc.org, and if you look under resources, you'll find a link to the budget, am88.maineucc.org. I appreciate it, Jeff, that you expressed your own thanks to the Finance Committee, and I also express my thanks. I'm not going to take the time right now to read each name that's on there, but if you are on that list and you're present and you're able, I'd appreciate it if you'd stand up, hold your applause, because we got another screen of people to thank. But Finance Committee members are in the room. I know they were here this morning. They love you, even if they're not here for this presentation. And you can't do budgeting work without a lot of help from other people, and our Finance Committee worked very closely with the Pilgrim Lodge leadership team, and particularly Allison DiMatteo, who is here, maybe wants to stand up, Ben Haskell, who is the chair of the Pilgrim Lodge leadership team, sitting behind me, and also the chair of the Finance Subcommittee, Melinda Trotty, the interim director of Outdoor Ministries, and also conference ministry and operations staff that you see listed there. Would you take a moment joining me in applauding them? I can't proceed without also taking a moment to express my thanks for my predecessor, the late Mark Precourt, member of First Parish Federated Church in South Berwick. It was 1 year ago in this building when I sat across from Mark and looked him in the eye and said, "Thank you for your ministry." And now we miss him here today, and I know that all of us, the Maine Conference, are still thankful for the ministry that Mark did among us. I want to begin with some good news. I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to read those, and I'll help you with these numbers. So far, through the end of September of 2019, the giving that you and your churches have been doing has been wonderful. The giving patterns for our church's wider mission and for fellowship dues are not linear through the year. There is an up and down pattern that they follow. So in some of the reports that get put together, the budgeted amounts for these givings are just the annual divided by 12, and it doesn't always give us the best idea of how we're doing. For our church's wider mission, as of September 30, 2018, you all had given, I'm going to round some numbers off, about $243,000. The budget for 2019 through the end of September is $240,000, but you have actually given almost $246,000. As of September 30, 2018, the actual fellowship dues amount was nearly $188,000, and the budget based on a variable, that variable up and down pattern would be the same $188,000. You and your churches have actually paid $189,000. You are ahead of last year, you are ahead of budget, and I'm willing to give up a little bit of my precious time for you to applaud yourselves again. That's enough. That's the good news on the revenue side. There's also good news on the expense side. Through September 30 of 2019, the conference ministry and operations side of our financial life is running a $68,000 surplus. This surplus exists primarily because of careful stewardship and management of expenses by our conference staff. You also heard Deborah say this morning the excitement that the board of directors is feeling about the new directions for the Maine School of Ministry under the leadership of the acting dean, Ron Bard, and we see good things coming from that program. Let's turn now to talk, okay, we already are there, the 2020 budget. And the first item that I want to call your attention to is that the budget for conference ministry and operations in 2020 is balanced. The second thing to which I want to call your attention is that the budget for the Maine School of Ministry is balanced. That balanced budget for the Maine School of Ministry, though, is partly dependent upon your response to the opportunities that are going to come your way to support the Maine School of Ministry. And there'll be news and information coming to you and to your churches about that, and you can look for those opportunities to demonstrate your support for that school. The budget for 2020 for Pilgrim Lodge has a deficit of $39,358, pretty much in line with recent year deficits, and I'll say a little bit more about the budget plan for addressing that deficit in just a moment. One of the first things that the Finance Committee did when we sat down to work on the 2020 budget was to agree among ourselves that we were going to be realistic about our income projections to avoid undue optimism. And so if you do have the budget document open in front of you on your phone or tablet or laptop, and you were to look at the second page of the document, but it's page 1 of the budget after the overview, and you'll see at the top of that page, line 5, our church's wider mission. The budget in 2018 was $420,000. In 2019, a little over $403,000. And we are presenting a budget for 2020 of $380,000 for our church's wider mission, a decrease in the budget of 5.8%. Line number 6, fellowship dues in 2018, the budget was $227,000. In 2019, the budget was $218,000. Our proposed budget for 2020 is $200,000, a decline in the budgeted amount of 8.3%. One of the things we learned in gathering data, studying these numbers, is that there's a budgeted amount for fellowship dues, and letters are sent to the churches for how much the churches owe, and not every church pays the amount that's due, and some churches don't pay at all. And so we have seen that it has been in the past that we've not been reaching the budgeted amounts, and so for 2020 we're budgeting a lower amount. The same spirit of realism applies to the main revenue line for Pilgrim Lodge, the line for camp revenue programmed events. It's line 15 on that page 1. In 2018, that budget was nearly $336,000. In 2019, $243,000. For 2020, we're proposing $230,000, a decline in the budget of 5.3%. And I will say that these numbers, we went back and looked at data as far back as 2008 and did all kinds of tracking of trends and did some of the kind of detailed work that I just described to you to understand the patterns that led to these declining proposed budgets. I'm also going to take this moment to say to you that one of the things that happens right around the time of the annual meeting is that the Social Security Administration releases its cost of living adjustment, its COLA percentage, and the voted policy of this conference is to use that cost of living adjustment percentage to increase the fellowship dues rate amount every year. That COLA amount released by the Social Security Administration is 1.6%. 1.6% based on the Consumer Price Index. Our current fellowship dues amount is $15.86, the conference fellowship dues amount. And so based on this cost of living adjustment, the fellowship dues amount for 2020 will be $16.11. And this is brand new, fresh information, and we'll get it posted to the website also so you can have it for your own budget planning, $16.11. Let me say something about Pilgrim Lodge. The thing about, I tell my economics students when we talk about the federal budget deficit, is that the deficit means that there are bills that have to be paid, even though the revenues don't exist to cover all of those bills, and so somehow the federal government has to find the funds to cover those unpaid bills, and the same thing is true for the conference. If we foresee that Pilgrim Lodge is going to have a $39,000 deficit in 2020, there has to be some way to cover those expenses. There's been many things to celebrate about the life of the conference, and one of those things is that we have been blessed, all right, there we go, by a gift from an anonymous donor who has donated a very generous fund, and the only designation on that fund is that the proceeds be used to support Pilgrim Lodge in some way at the discretion of the Board of Directors. And so the Board of Directors has decided for 2020 to use a portion of that fund to cover that $39,000 deficit. And if you've got the budget document, you can see that entry on page 4, line 173. So those funds, that support fund will be there to help help finance the projected Pilgrim Lodge deficit in 2020. In addition, during 2020, the conference is going to be doing some new things. On page 2 of the budget, it's the third page of the posted document, page 2 of the budget. On line 55, you'll see a new line expense item for church support consultants. Deborah mentioned it in her State of the Conference this morning, $11,400. And this will be some funding that will be available so that Deborah is able to secure the services of people who then will be able to work with churches as those churches need support, and it will provide some opportunity to do some extra work without extra stress on our 2 conference ministers. You will see on line 71 a $15,000 sabbatical reserve. Deborah is eligible for a sabbatical in 2020. Her current plans are that she'll take it in 2021. While Deborah is on sabbatical, the conference will have need to have some staffing adjustments made, and so we want to begin to set aside some monies to build up a fund to help us with those staffing adjustments during that sabbatical. And the plan is to set aside $15,000 in 2020 and $15,000 in 2021. In planning this sabbatical reserve, we realized that this is really a kind of good management practice that we need to do for all of our called ministers who are eligible for sabbaticals. And so it is the intention of the board of directors to plan ahead. Darren just finished a sabbatical. There will be another sabbatical in a period of time. It's possible that our new director of outdoor ministries will be eligible for sabbaticals, and so the board will begin to plan for those sabbaticals and be able to fund them accordingly. This treasurer's report, by the way, these PowerPoint slides that I've just gone through are posted to the website under the link for treasurer's report. So at this time, I would welcome any questions.
It's a terrible case of the afternoons. Friends, the budget has been presented before you. It has been moved by the board of directors and does not require a second. Is there any other discussion at this time? Don't call a question. That means a whole nother vote. Let's vote. If we are ready to vote, I would ask you to have your voting cards ready. If you are in favor of adopting the 2020 budget as presented, please raise your card. Set them down. Any opposed? Any abstentions? It is a vote, and we thank you. The budget is adopted for 2020. Which means I find myself in the amazing and strange new moderator position of ahead of schedule. Okay. So I would like to recognize some more friends to bring news of our conference ministries, and so I will recognize Melinda Trotty, our interim director of outdoor ministries, who is now hiding behind something. I will also recognize Ben Haskell, the chair of the Pilgrim Lodge leadership team, and Deborah, and some other people, it seems like. Welcome, friends.
Well, good afternoon. We're ahead of schedule. That's unique. My name is Ben Haskell. My first year at Pilgrim Lodge was in 1957, just a year after the Maine Congregational Maine Christian Conference purchased the former Ballbrook Lodge on Lake Cobbassacontee in West Gardiner, Maine. I'm sure many of you have been campers, counselors, deans, and staff, and many of your beloved family and friends have experienced the joy and satisfaction of this special place. Might I say, sacred place. I'm asking now for, and I look like we have quite a few already, if you were on the campaign committee, the building committee, or the Pilgrim Lodge advisory team over the past 3 to 6 years, please come up on the stage and join your partners here. Who's that?
I'm thinking they should clap for this group.
Well, not yet. As we wrap up the past few years of the Pilgrim Lodge campaign, it is most fitting to recognize some of the folks who made it all happen. The Capital Campaign Committee, who did amazing work finding donors and encouraging us to support this campaign. And those who helped turn your donations into actual structural reality, such as the Keto Bakito Dining and Activity Hall, the amphitheater, boat docks enhancements, and most recent and exciting boardwalk accessibility to the waterfront. And there is still more to come for the camp with the remaining dollars. And this was all handled by the hardworking building committee who provided planning, oversight, and actual hands-on labor. They brought talent, expertise, and frugality to the process. We are very pleased to have a number of these committee members join us this afternoon, and we are honored to recognize their hard work and dedication to Pilgrim Lodge these past years with a plaque that reads,
Plenty of time.
oh yes. What? My name isn't on this? No. The plaque will read, with gratitude for your dedicated and faithful support of Pilgrim Lodge and the outdoor ministries of the Maine Conference United Church of Christ, Annual Meeting 2019, and it has the logo of PL and the Maine Conference United Church of Christ. Very sharp looking. Now, Deborah and Melinda will help as I say the names of those who are here, if there's anybody you don't know. Now, there is one caveat, I suppose. You only get one plaque, although some of you have served on 2, if not 3 committees. Okay. From the campaign committee, our consultant, Reverend Peter Heinrichs. One of his co-chairs was Pam Gormley, the other, Herb Oliver. I should save you to last, but the Reverend Ann Roundy. And the Reverend Annette Mott. Evelyn Clues. And she is a reverend. Pam Burnham. Yes, the reverend's spouse. And let me name some who are not here: Michael Stevens and Molly Landers, and we're never going to forget Nita DeHaas. From the building committee, Herb Oliver, one plaque, please. Steve Jones, Steve Hatt, Pam Burnham, Reverend Evelyn Close, Brad Craig, Steve White, John Steelhammer, and Mark Patterson. Even before the campaign began and the work on the facility started, there was a group who worked with the Director of Outdoor Ministries, Brian Briall, as an advisory group to the Director, and were known as the Pilgrim Lodge Task Force, and later the PLAT, or Pilgrim Lodge Advisory Team. This invaluable team included Herb Oliver, Reverend Evelyn Clues, the Reverend Ann Roundy, Nita DeHaas, Phil Hilton, Ruth Thibodeau, and the late Susan DeCosta. These plaques are but a token, and we cannot even begin to tell you how much work over the past 4 to 5 years these people have done for Pilgrim Lodge and its sustainability as we continue on that project. Thank you all, and you may leave the stage carefully. No, I got a couple more. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I will. Although we are honoring those who work so diligently for Pilgrim Lodge throughout these campaign and building years, we know that Pilgrim Lodge must continue to serve the congregations of the Maine Conference and others outside the conference, and must be sustainable moving forward. One group that has done so much of this over many years is the Outdoor Ministries Committee, now the Outdoor Ministries Team, whose primary role is the programming of the camping season and recruiting and training of deans and counselors. If members of the Outdoor Ministry Team are present, please stand when I call your name, and please hold your applause. Chair of the OMT is Karen Choate. Dan McGlincy, Pam Burnham, Steph Michaud, Lynn Neal, Chrissy Martin, Youth Representative Adrienne Bertonet, and 2 recent past members, Adam LaViolette and Tim Martin. A hand for our outdoor ministry team. Our last group to mention is just a year old, chartered as a standing committee of the Board of Directors and charged to make PL sustainable in the next 2 to 3 years, and to work with all our friends of Pilgrim Lodge to keep PL one of our most important resources that will serve God and our campers of all ages for generations to come. It is known as the PLLT, or the Pilgrim Lodge Leadership Team, and its members who are serving staggered terms include, and please stand if you're here, Allison DiMatteo, Secretary and Board Liaison, Stephanie Michaud, Laura Barrantes, Steve Blanchard, Megan Williams, Xander Keeter, Hannah Herb Smith, the Reverend Marcia Charles, I know she's here, and the Reverend Maureen Cattell. And the PL Director and Chair of the OMT are intricately involved in the work of the Pilgrim Lodge Leadership Team. Just one note, thank you all. You'll see a whole cross-section of ages and experience on this PLLT. I'm the old guy, and that's why I'm standing up here now, but we go right through to college age, and there's a good group of people from all walks of life, all expertise, availabilities, and people who are dedicated to that. The PLLT will be looking for volunteers, though, to flesh out our subcommittees in the areas of financing, facilities, and fundraising, which is ongoing and is necessary for building our maintenance and upkeep fund. There is a clipboard making the rounds, or see me or Melinda Trotty to make yourself known to us if one of these subcommittees appeal to you. It has been my privilege to share the stage with all these folks, and also with you who have supported the mission of Pilgrim Lodge for the last 63 years. May God continue to smile on this thin place, so important in all our lives as a gathered people of the Maine Conference. Thank you. And I now would like to introduce our acting Pilgrim Lodge director for the past 2 seasons, Melinda Trotty, whose experience, personality, and work ethic has been amazing to see, and whose desire, and this is true, whose desire to see Pilgrim Lodge flourish in the years ahead motivates her as much as any of us. Melinda.
Good afternoon. As some of you may know, I have served as the settled or interim director at camps around the country and have served on several national camp committees. Also, my husband serves as executive director at this point in Southern California, overseeing 5 camps in California and Hawaii. And I tell you all of this to tell you that I have this wide lens that I get to come and view the Maine conference with. And I get to tell you something amazing. You are small, but you are mighty. What you have done is amazing. You've done something that most other mainline denominations are not even attempting. I asked my husband the other day about fundraising and the possibility of a capital campaign for the 5 United Methodist camps in Southern California, where we need a lot of infrastructure work. And his response was, Melinda, there's little interest in fundraising, and there is no will for a capital campaign right now. Your more than $2 million made beautiful changes and additions to Pilgrim Lodge. You can see only some of them on the screen. Hopefully we were seeing some of those, or will shortly. You should be proud of what you did. And I have learned that Mainers are not real comfortable feeling proud. And we were told earlier that taking a pause is a good thing, so we're going to pause. Ben, can you set your watch for 30 seconds, or your phone? For 30 seconds, we're just going to pause for a moment and feel proud of being small but mighty. Ben, tell me when 30 seconds is up.
I'm feeling wicked proud. 25.
Wicked proud. Wicked Maine proud. 30 seconds? All right. Thank you for applauding not only the money that you raised, but also the expertise and commitment brought to this project by the many volunteers. Not just the ones you recognize here, but many others that did their part along the way. Thank you for letting me be a very small part of the successful project. Before I go into what I came to tell you this afternoon, I'm letting you know that you can find copies of the State of Pilgrim Lodge 2019 report at our booth, and we will be sending jump drives to the churches, and that report will be on there. There'll be the slideshow with some of the beautiful photos and other information. What I want you to know is Pilgrim Lodge's operations are an open book. Please continue to expect this clarity, competence, and transparency in the future from your settled director and your governance group, the Pilgrim Lodge leadership team. Be safe, be kind. Lydia's smiling. Be brave. These are the words with which I started off each camp session at the end of the waterfront talk, asking campers to make decisions to keep themselves and others safe, physically and emotionally, to remind them that kindness is pilgrim logical, and then to challenge them to do something that they were afraid of, to take at least one healthy risk during their time at camp. Today I would like to speak to you as your interim director, as I will soon leave your ministry in the hands of the carefully chosen settled director and the Pilgrim Lodge leadership team. Know that I will stay with you until you find the next right person. I didn't come and work this hard to leave before I got to see that happen. We're not quite there yet. Staff and the search committee, they're doing their job. So first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be a part of the blessing that is Pilgrim Lodge. I came for one season and then just had to come back for a second. I will never be the same having served in this place. Thank you for also indulging me the opportunity to speak plainly with you today about not just the nuts and bolts of the camp and retreat ministry. You'll get that on your jump drive. You just saw our budget. But also some of my observations and suggestions. I am all heart, someone whose heart leads me often into places where it would have been easier not to go. I offer my observations with my heart softened by the winds that blow through the labyrinth and my embodied experience of the Maine seasons and the creatures that live here through those seasons, on the islands, in the forest, amongst the rocks, and the sweet waters of Pilgrim Lodge. It truly is a thin place where experiencing God is easier there than perhaps at other places. As you know, I have served during a transition time after a long leadership tenure at PL, moving to the next right steps for Pilgrim Lodge. Interim means transition, and transition means heightened anxiety and economic distress. On top of this transition creates even more unsettledness, as if our country and world at this moment didn't need more unsettledness. We interims learn mostly to not take things personally, knowing that systems of people under stress tend to act in fairly predictable ways, and I will attempt now to speak both with my heart, that big heart, and with the experience and knowledge of having acted as an interim camp and retreat leader in other settings. So first, safety. As interim outsider, I can tell you that your fierce independence as Mainers is admirable. I have seen how UCC polity and Yankee self-reliance can create empowered volunteers. We just saw some of those folks here who engage in ministry that maintains the local church and local camp and makes a difference in the world. Many of you make your way to PL each summer caring for campers in this beautiful place in a way that few other camps in the country can still claim. You're amazing. Your volunteer base is amazingly, I almost want to say unique at this particular point in our camping history. This self-reliant streak means I heard often in the building committee meetings, nah, we won't spend money on that, we'll make it ourselves. And then you did. And then you just showed up, bringing amazing things without fanfare or any expectation of a thank you. Please don't lose the sweet, sweet spirit of generosity and propensity towards using your skills to make Pilgrim Lodge and all that it does happen. I have also observed that intertwined with this independence and gracious desire to give of what one can do, to be a reflexive disgruntledness with leadership at times, or a sense of irritation with those whom you asked to lead when they actually do it. I have learned from my days as a faith-based community organizer and within the polity of the United Methodist Church from which I come, not to be ashamed of power or authority, but to engage it for the purpose of changing the world for the better. Understanding the importance of clear process, it is interesting to me how many times in Maine I have asked, what is our process? Who makes this decision? What are our next steps? And I heard silence. I'm used to asking before a meeting is over, who does what, by when? But in Maine, that process with the expectations and assumptions behind it seems to be an affront, perhaps, to those not at the meeting. The Maine conference feels like a big family, a big family. It creates a sense of home in a world that seems at times to be bent on breaking all that creates decency and holds us together. Home is such a good place to be, and many of us are afraid in a world that moves ever faster that we are losing the goodness of familiarity and the strength of the church that helped form us into who we are and how we understand the world. It seems that here in the Maine United Church of Christ, everyone is somehow related, often in many and overlapping ways. This creates a safe place for people to be known, for people to be themselves, and we all need this safety now more than ever. This safety in knowing and being known can also lead to difficulty at times with disagreement. I have seen people at times struggle to be in disagreement about a project, for instance, with someone who was their dean or pastor or child's dean or former camper or counselor or fellow committee member at some point in the past. It can feel that our friend's very safety runs in direct opposition to our expressing disagreement. This dynamic itself creates an internal sense of unease, whether the disagreement is aired or not. It can also conversely lead to criticism expressed in a way that it seems to come out of nowhere. I have seen how really good people struggle to make decisions and remain in relationship with each other, to create safety for each other by not offending or making decisions someone else might not like. Attending to relationships is so important. Marcia Charles told me that more than once. Melinda, we got to attend to a relationship before we do that thing, and she was always right. Attending to relationships is important. And at the same time, without clear process and authority, safety can keep decisions from being made and create unresolved conflict and even stagnation. I ask you to speak plainly with each other, use clearly defined process, and trust that the authority that you gave your leaders is well placed. Pilgrim Lodge's sustainability rests upon honest decision-making processes clearly communicated. Remember when I said PL's an open book? I want you to remember that. We're an open book. We're communicating how decisions are made, what our budget is, how we're moving forward. Sustainability will be found not within the safety found in stagnation, but within intentionally created spaces of safety where people can both disagree and be kind and lead and be honored for their leadership. Learning about practices of sustainability from other camps and judicatories is an important part of moving forward. It's industry standards. Doing things differently is not a criticism of what has been done before. It means times are changing. It is simply learning from others for the success of what we love. Be kind. That was the second thing I told our campers. You are a small conference that has welcomed me to this special place we call Pilgrim Lodge. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of you as we have sought together to move Pilgrim Lodge to the next right place. In the midst of this process, I have observed at times some suspicion about decision-making that seems to be uniquely Maine. I am used to who makes a decision being an easily answered question. It doesn't involve conversations about the personality of the supposed decision maker or the various ways in which we have known that person. May I suggest that you default not to suspicion or assumptions of ill will of your leaders, but to love. It may help to remember that being a leader in the mainline church today is not for the faint of heart. It takes kindness and bravery and a willingness to take others' criticism into account, but not to heart, else one's heart be broken too soon and too often to be effective. I will also say that I took the original interim position in Maine because of the answers from the consultant responsible for the sustainability report on Pilgrim Lodge. He and I have been colleagues for decades. When I asked him about the structure and the health of the Maine conference and Pilgrim Lodge, where's the conflict? I've learned to ask that question coming in as an interim. I was told that the conference minister had acted soon in her tenure to address the financial crisis of Pilgrim Lodge using her skills as both a pastor and attorney, that she was mission-driven, not ego-driven. I was told, I think you will enjoy working with her. She is one of the most effective church leaders I have worked with. I agree, and I have. It is because of the functionality of your conference minister and the board of directors that I came back for a second season. Having been a part of numerous camp, retreat ministries, conferences, not-for-profit boards, and several attempted restructures, it has felt good to be a part of a restructure that actually succeeded. It is the only one of which I have been a part that actually created new leadership structures that are functional and produce the positive outcomes for which they were created. It was rewarding, just for one instance, to see our collegial work pay off as accurate and easily read financials began to appear in my email inbox every month, with respectful discussions continuing to be engaged as we discuss other financial processes that have been opaque for years and are now becoming transparent. It has been refreshing to work with Deborah and the board of directors to develop a charter for and then the membership of the Pilgrim Lodge leadership team, a group of people who are competent, mature, open to learning, seeking clarity with a desire for sustainability and a commitment to the hard work ahead. I am grateful for the personal and professional support I have received from the members of the Pilgrim Lodge leadership team, from Reverend Blood, many others. I know that this Pilgrim Lodge leadership team will serve you as a conference well. I will just very briefly say the Pilgrim Lodge leadership team went to work at the first meeting, and the reason is because there was clarity in that charter as to what their job was and who we as a group were going to be. It was amazing. So be brave. I will tell you, when the adults come on retreat, I usually say, who's here for the first time? And, they do this. And I say, you're so brave. And then they go, kind of like that, because I always say that because as adults, it's harder sometimes for us to be brave than it is for the young ones, right? Life is new for them. They haven't been hurt maybe as many times as we have. Be brave. Who doesn't want to be brave? I want to be brave. I have found in Maine great kindness and great self-reliance and a willingness to hold that which is good. I have also found that authority is not easily claimed or respected at times by some folks in the Maine UCC. I find a strange dichotomy here where often no one wants to make a decision without consulting everyone first, but then some are disgruntled after the decision is made. It takes bravery to do things differently. I challenge you to be brave in learning together. 1, how to transparently determine and communicate your goals and do it with kindness. Transparently determine and then communicate your goals and do it with kindness. If you know why you're there, it's easier to get there, right? How to both trust those volunteer and paid leaders whom you chose while also holding them accountable for their performance. Accountability and kindness can go together. How to hold the tension of expecting competence from your leaders while also trusting them to be acting from good and not ill will. And since I've now moved into that vintage ventures age group, I get to talk a little bit about nostalgia. How do we engage our best selves, not in the practice of nostalgia for nostalgia's sake, but in being brave in the face of this church, which formed us, being transformed by God into something new. Something that we may not even live long enough to see or experience. How can we be brave knowing that we may not live long enough to see that which God is creating in our midst. Remember, when worried that things are changing, that the heart of Pilgrim Lodge remains. Pilgrim Lodge's heart remains even as we change beloved physical spaces to make them more accessible and open this gift of Pilgrim Lodge to new populations who never knew this space could also be for them. New for the sake of new is not the main way. Being open and loving is. Being open and loving and affirming today means doing some new things and opening up to new folks. And I know you can do this. I've been here long enough to know you can do this. I know you can be brave. I will close with thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to give and to lead, for your steadfastness and generosity, for your willingness to engage a Southern United Methodist from California, even when she inadvertently stepped on toes that she never knew were there. For your personal kindness to me and your bravery that most certainly can overcome fear and will serve you well as you move into sustainability for Pilgrim Lodge. Blessings.
Much better than statistics, right?
I'm sorry?
It's much better than statistics, right? Well, all the other folks who got plaques, we had to have one for Melinda, too, for a job well done these last 2 seasons. And we are going to miss her expertise, her personality, and I'm sure she's going to be back from time to time to check up on us, and we relish that. So here's your plaque and a thank you from the PLLT. And I want to turn it over to our conference minister to continue.
Lovely parting gifts.
Oh, my goodness. Presents.
Presents. So you can tell what a delight it's been to work with Melinda. It's beautiful. It's beautiful when someone understands their authority and my authority, and we were pretty seamless.
Well, we argued about theology quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. There were times we argued. And there were times when Melinda said, you have to decide. And there are times when I said, no, this is your decision. And we worked it out. And it is grace to have been able to have someone so generative and hopeful and competent. So it's easy to be able to not only be colleagues, but friends, because we have the boundaries that we need to do that.
We did.
Yeah. You can tell how blessed our conference has been in Pilgrim Lodge. And I have been personally blessed to be here with you. So I said to Nate, we need to give her a picture of Pilgrim Lodge. What's your best one?
Oh, so beautiful.
For you. And this is,
Yeah, it's a photo of some of the prams that were built, I'll leave it at the table so you can see it. But these are the prams that were built with the Carpenter's Boat Shop and that beautiful sunset. Beautiful sunset at Pilgrim Lodge. Thank you.
and I thought it would be nice to have something that you could use all the time. So you don't have to open this now, you could. But this is a present for you to remember us by just in your daily life.
Okay, it's nice and heavy.
Yeah. Something from our Maine artisans for Melinda to remember us by.
I will open it, and you can come by our table and see it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So much.
Before I leave the podium here, because, hey, I really like it up here, I do want to point out another act of kindness and a woman's passion and a gift of love to Pilgrim Lodge. This is the start of a larger project that Evelyn Clues did. It's her handiwork. And this is the campaign, well, you can read it, but we want to pass it on has been the slogan for the campaign ever since it started. This will be mounted, a place yet to be decided, somewhere on the campus of Pilgrim Lodge, and then there will be equally frames around it which will contain the names of our 524 donors who gave to the campaign that let us reach our goal. So thank you, Evelyn. That's a great start, and we look forward to seeing everyone's name up there. It's very, very nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Melinda. Friends, I want to take a brief moment to just remind you of the order of events that is before us, lest you feel the gravitational pull of the light from outside. I want to remind you of a few things. We have a little more business to attend to, but also we'll have a performance coming up of the Pacintu Choir. That is going to be wonderful and amazing, and so we hope that you will stay to hear their performance, and we hope that you will stay to have closing worship with us. So, turning to the order of the day, I would now like to recognize Steve Hastings on behalf of the Governance Committee, and Steve will move for us the slate of directors and trustees nominated for election in this year. Steve.
The nominating report to the Governance Committee, and I don't know if that's going to get posted up there, but I'll just read it to you. To the delegates of the 2019 annual meeting of the Maine Conference, in fulfillment of its duty as nominating committee, the Governance Committee submits the following slate of nominees for positions that require election at the annual meeting of the Maine Conference. To the Board of Directors for the class of 2022, Allison DeMatteo, Alyssa Lodwick, and Harif Smith. And to trustees for the class of 2022, Jeff McDonnell and Scott Hammond. And these are all 3-year terms. So I move this slate of nominees on behalf of the nominating committee.
As this is coming from the board, it does not require a second. Is there any discussion about the slate of nominees? If you are ready to vote, I would ask you to get your voting cards handy. All those in favor of electing the nominees presented, please raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed? Thank you. Any abstentions? The slate of nominees is elected. And so we hope that we will recognize some of these folks and just give thanks for their ministries in the time to come. I hope that we will have them come up as part of our closing worship. We now have a little bit of news that we need to get to, and so I'm going to recognize Nathaniel Blanchard, who is the communications assistant for the Maine Conference, to bring you some news. Not surprisingly, Nathaniel needs to plug some things in.
So, A lot of you may have heard that we've been working on a new website, and so that should be what's up on the screen now. It just went live about 5 minutes ago, so now you can access it. Please don't blow it up. The website currently only has about 50 hours of work into it. We're still working on putting on some content. However, the majority of things have been rewritten, migrated, identified, etc. And so if you do happen to find something, we have this lovely contact area on the website where you can go and you can submit a little, what I've been calling constructive feedback, just so that we know that there's an issue. We also will be keeping a running list on the website of issues we are working to fix, as we are still dealing with a mobile view issue. But in regards to anything, if you notice a problem, please do not hesitate to let us know. Also, there is an archive website available that has everything exactly the way it was before we did this. So if you go to archive.maineucc.org, you can see the old website. A message appears at the top that says this is an archive site, but everything is there, files and all. We have a new event calendar that has events up through this month. Look for that to start having new stuff added to it here shortly. You can also access all of our social media stuff. The site is completely searchable. And I'll scroll down just so you can see a little bit more of the design here. You can expect to see Deb's first blog post appear here shortly, as well as some exciting upcoming news. You can also see our Twitter feed at the bottom. And we've added this lovely new function that some of you may have noticed we were test piloting on the AM88 website, this little envelope that's hard to see down the bottom right-hand corner. It allows you to send messages directly to divisions within inside of the main conference like MISOM, things related to communications, search and call, etc. And that stuff will go straight to the inbox of the staff at the conference office who are in charge of those functions. It's still a beta test, so please check it out. But beyond that, this is the lovely new website. I encourage you to check it out. There is one more thing that I want to share with you, because you may notice that the resources that were listed on the long resources tab on the old website no longer has those. That's because we are working on a new project that is tentatively called the All Church Resource Access System, or ACRAS, which translates roughly from a biblical term to citadel. And what this will contain is this is going to contain everything from some of the additional search and call stuff that's not already on the search and call page. It'll contain stuff in regards to some stuff like sound systems. There'll be an ability for you to suggest content that we add. And the idea behind this is to help not only better resource the local church, but to give you a centralized, easily searchable place to go and get information. So look for that at the start of 2020. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to give thanks for the ministry of Nathaniel. You have heard that it is a commitment that we have, that there will be more transparency and more availability and more access to information about our ministries. And so I give thanks for the work that Nathaniel has put in to begin this process. We know that, for instance, people have looked for more information, reports, those sorts of things from the board of directors. And so part of the new website is indeed a page for the board of directors and documents related to there. So we hope that you will continue to explore that, and we are thankful for your patience as we've been moving this project along. It's an important one. Friends, you know that the time is coming when you hear not just of rumors of credential reports, but credential reports. And so I would recognize the Credentials Committee, sometimes otherwise known as Ann Hodgman, to bring report of the Credentials Committee.
Well, we've had a very busy annual meeting. 78 churches were here, 3 association officers, 9 board of directors members, 10 retired clergy, 65 clergy with standing in Maine, 3 standing outside of Maine, 84 lay delegates, 7 conference staff, 4 members in discernment, 20 visitors, 2 youth delegates, 3 youth visitors, and 1 youth choir with a director that you're about to meet. And that is the credential report for 2019.
And with that, we're going to move directly to the choir performance. And so, Sarah, are you going to come forward and introduce them? I would recognize Sarah Bartlett.
Hello, everyone.
Use them.
Hello, everyone. So this afternoon, we have the pleasure of hearing this wonderful group. It is a group of young women from Portland, an immigrant group, and their name, as Jeff was saying, is Patintu. So I now invite everyone to sit back, relax, and enjoy the music.
Good afternoon, and thanks very much for having us. This chorus is called Pisintu, which is a Passamaquoddy Indian word, thank you, meaning when they sing, their voices carry far. In the 15 years the chorus has been together, they have performed for well over 250,000 people live and hundreds of millions through media. They have been to the United Nations several times, the Kennedy Center, the White House, and on November 20th of this year, there will be a major video released by the United Nations as a mission driver and fundraiser for the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. Who you see up there, on a good day, there are 34 girls representing 22 countries. So the good news is, if you worry about the future, don't worry. In 15 years, well over 300 kids have gone through the chorus. 85% have gone on to college. Pretty good.
Everywhere around the world today. candle for peace. Oh, I will light a candle for peace. And when I light my candle, oh, when I light my candle, it will shine upon us for peace on earth. A candle for peace. Oh, I will light a candle for peace. And when I light my candle, oh, when I light my candle, it will shine upon us for peace on earth. I will light a candle for peace. Oh, I will light a candle for peace. And when I light my candle, oh, when I light my candle, it will shine upon us for peace on earth. For peace on earth. I will light a candle for peace.
Fonty.
I've heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. But you don't really care for music, do you? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, and the major lift. The baffled king composing hallelujah.
Well, your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof. Her beauty and the moonlight overthrew you. She tied you to her kitchen chair. She broke your throne, then she cut your hair. And from your lips she drew the hallelujah.
Well, baby, I've been here before. I've seen this room and I walk this floor. I used to live alone before I knew you. And I've seen your flag on the marble arch. And love is not a victory march. It's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah. Well, maybe there's a God above, but all I've ever learned from love was how to shoot somebody who would drew ya. And it's not a cry that you hear at night. It's not somebody who sinned the light. It's a chord and it's a broken hallelujah.
So I mentioned earlier that we were doing the video for the UN, and we will debut it for you today. This is a song that I wrote for Shai here when we performed for the United Nations in New York last December. It was a celebration for a passage of a thing called the Global Refugee Pact, which meant that they were trying to gather all of the NGOs and all the government organizations under one tent, so they were all sort of firing on the same cylinders. And so we got there, and Shai and her mom and family had just come over from Namibia. And so they were asylum seekers, and we feared for all of them, so her mother couldn't get off the bus to watch her daughter perform at the United Nations. So I wrote this about it.
Somewhere there's a place for me, somewhere where I can be, somewhere, a place of peace and harmony, a place where everyone can be, somewhere where we all can live together. Can you believe what I believe? Can you? Can you wish the same as me? Can you? That somehow we can make us whole, one heart, one mind, one dream, one soul, a place where everyone can live together. 'Cause if we believe that we can achieve, we can be anything on earth we want to be. Just follow the sun, wish on the stars, and let love define the people that we are. So may we walk the road to find that place together. May we be as one beneath our sun together. May we make the bells of freedom ring. May we find a single song to sing. May we cherish every living thing together. 'Cause if we believe that we can achieve, we can be anything on earth we want to be. Just follow the sun, wish on the stars, and let love define the people that we are. Somewhere, somewhere.
Kid can sing.
choice we're making. We're saving our lives. It's a brighter day to see where we.
Hello? We all need somebody that we can lean on. When you wake up, look around and see that your dream's gone. When the earthquakes will help you make it through the storm. When the floor breaks, a magic carpet to stand on. We are the world united by love so strong. When the radio isn't on, you can hear songs. I gotta light the dark road you're walking on. A signpost to find the dreams you thought was gone. Sorry, guys. Someone to help you move the obstacles you stumble on. Someone to help you rebuild after the rebel's gone. We are the world connected by a common bond. Love, the whole planet singing along.
Choice
Does Ann Hodgman know how to put on a credentials report? Thank you to the Pacintu Choir. So, indeed, we have the most important order of business, which is to say thank you. To say thanks to many people who have worked so hard to make today so important and so wonderful and so much us as the Maine Conference. And so I get to say a very special thank you to Sarah Bartlett and to Susan Reisert, who have beautifully and gracefully and joyfully organized this particular holy and beloved community of cats, especially myself. And then I get to recognize them so that they might say some thank you to some other folks. Don't worry, if you're standing right now, you're on theme for me. I will come back to you. But for right now, we have some more people that we need to say thank you to. And so Sarah and Susan.
And as Jeff noted, I will not be singing these because a Brobst cannot hold a tune. So we would like to thank the following folks. When we put annual meeting together, you have people that you see running around, but there's so many folks who are behind the scenes. It is literally the body of Christ that comes together to put all of this work and all of this effort and all of this love. And this process has been so full of grace, so full of patience, and we have so many people that we would like to thank.
All right. We're going to go down the list?
We're going to go down the list.
Down the list.
All right.
We'll start. Should we? Well, we'll go down the list quickly. Worship. We want to thank Mark, Raymond, and Charlotte.
For Ushers for Collection, Sharon Brobst, Karen Choate, and Allie Curry.
And for workshops, we want to thank Ron, Stephen, Shelley, Kelly, Bruce, Char, Julie, David, Jackie, Nate, Joshua, Casey, Keenan, and Abby Lynn.
For Friday evening, we thank Steve Carnahan for putting that all together.
And for the affinity group lunches, our leaders, Harif, Kathy, Allison, Steve, Alyssa, Julia, Jessica, Melinda, Ron, Deb, Darren, and Chrissy.
We should have sung this. This would have been a cute little tune.
Or at least done a cartwheel in between.
I know. And again, we'd like to thank Julia Sleeper for being our keynote speaker.
How'd I get the long lists? You know, from the Saco Church, and please, I think most of them have managed to escape the building. But if there are any that are still lingering, or if you see any of them anytime soon, please do. They've done so much work for today. Sue, Jackie, Pastor Scott, Bob, Pam, Eric, Nadine, Sue, and Patrice.
And we would also like to thank conference staff, Reverend Deborah Blood, Reverend Darren Morgan, Ann Hodgman, Nita DeHaze, Melinda, Truddy, and special thanks to Nate for all of the technical help. He's gone back up there. So thank you all from the conference staff.
To our photographer, who's still snapping photos, Lydia, thank you.
And finally, our last thank you goes to Reverend Diane Wendorf. She designed the logo that you see here today. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Jeff Parker. Right? a total joy and a remarkable leader, and we are blessed. And this is just a little something.
The House will come to order. Unlikely. I would like to thank you all for your presence here this day. We have been sitting for a long time, and so I understand that standing ovations get easier after a little while. So I might invite you to stretch a little bit as I do this. I will begin, though, by asking those people who were just recently elected to please rise and allow us to thank you for your service. And so Allison DiMatteo, please rise. And Alyssa Lodwick, please rise. And Harris Smith, please rise. Jeff McDonnell, if you are in the room, please rise. And Scott Hammond, if you are in the room, please rise. We thank you for your service to the trustees. Now, if you are on the board of directors, will you please rise? Thank you for your service. Keep standing. If you are on the Pilgrim Lodge leadership team, would you also please rise? Everybody needs to keep on standing. If you are on resourcing the local church, would you please rise? If you are on the governance committee, please rise. If you are on the personnel committee, please rise. If you are on the development team, please rise, Lynette George. If you deeply love this conference and commit yourselves to pray for one another and our common ministry, please rise. Thank you for your service. There being no other business to come before the body at this time, I declare that the 88th meeting of the Maine Conference United Church of Christ will be adjourned at the close of worship. Come, friends, let us worship and let us stand adjourned.
worshiping you, lift my voice to thee. If I don't see a ribbon round the oak tree.
Please join me in the responsive call to worship. In caring compassion, God's arms hold us when we are weak. With divine generosity, God shares all creation with us. Let us join our hearts, hands, and voices with people the world over in praise, thanksgiving, and commitment to one another, our glorious God. Let us stand and sing the hymn, "Help Us Accept Each Other."
Please be seated. A reading from the Hebrew Bible from Micah chapter 6, verses 6 through 8. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before God on high? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings and with the calves that are a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000s of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgressions, and the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has told you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice, and to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. Blessings on all who have heard the reading from today.
Tulasi's way. Tulasi's way. Unkabokala, Jehovah wako, uzukin kobela, Tula mama Tulasi's way. Unkabokala, Jehovah wako, uzukin kobela, Inkululeku, 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 Jehovah wako, uzukin kobela, Mama Inkululeku, 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 Jehovah wako, uzukin kobela. Tulasi's
And now hear from God's rainbow people. For our storm-tossed world, a rainbow is a sign of hope. Thanks be to you for those today who, in word and action, respond to your call to love, kindness, do justice, and live humbly with you. God, eternal Spirit, we praise you. We celebrate the gathering of our diverse body and our love for one another. Reach out your hand in blessing on our community gathered here this afternoon. With your rainbow spread over
Please be seated. This table is open to all who confess Jesus as the Christ and seek to follow Christ's ways. We come to this sacred table not because we must, but because we may. We come to this table not because you stand fulfilled, but rather you stand in here in your emptiness. You stand ready in need of God's forgiveness and mercy. You come to this table of Jesus Christ. This is not the Maine Conference United Church of Christ table, but the table of Jesus Christ. And so therefore, come to this table, brothers and sisters, as you are, to partake and to share. It is spread out for you and for me, that we might know that God has come to us, shared our common lot, and invited us to join God in a new age.
Sisters and brothers, we come here with our own stories, with the stories of our conference, and we come remembering one story that we could probably all say together, of a night when Jesus experienced betrayal and desertion, on a night when he sat at table with his friends, and he looked at them and he saw people who fell short, people who betrayed him, people who were not up to the task, and he loved them. He loved them and he knew they would do what was needed. And so he looked at them and he took up a loaf of bread. And he blessed it, and he broke it. And he offered it to them, saying, "This is my body. It is broken for you. Each time you do this, remember me." And likewise, he took up the cup, and after giving thanks, he offered it to them and said, "This is my blood that is shed for you, the cup of the new covenant. Each time you drink this, remember me." And so we come with a prayer that God will bless these elements, this bread and this cup, that in them, as we eat them, we may remember and be blessed and be strengthened for the work God has given us. So friends, come, for all things are ready. Ministering to you in the name of Jesus, we offer you the body and the blood of Christ. prayer of thanksgiving. Holy One,
I'm coming home, I've done my time. Now I've got to know what is and isn't mine. If you received a text telling you I'd soon be free, then you'll know just what to do if you're waiting for me. If you're waiting for me, tie a colored ribbon round the old oak tree. It's been many church years, and God still loves me. If you don't see a ribbon round the old oak tree, I'll stay in this pew, keep worshiping you, lift my voice to thee. If I don't see a ribbon round the old oak tree.
friends, as we go from this place, let us say our benediction together. The Spirit of God is upon us. We are God's servants.
Gifted with dreams and visions.
Upon you rests the grace of God like flames of fire. Love and serve the Lord in the strength of the Spirit.
By the power of God, we are
Anointed as partners in this work of love, life, healing and compassion, joy and hope, stewardship of creation, peace and insight, and strength and dignity. The Spirit of God is upon us. Go forth to work and praise, made new by the power of the Holy Spirit, to strengthen you in every way. Amen and amen.
Oh, wait, that's mine too. Time. Hey, you're welcome.
much. Oh my gosh. I've only been here a year, a little over a year. Okay. So my church is the little church, and the first church in congregational church in Cuba. We're the old church. We're the first. And I live in Arundel.
Okay. All right. I'm the pastor in Winthrop, and my wife and I live in Sydney. Yeah.
I'm still getting to know my way around, so tell me in relation to where we are right now.
I am north of Augusta, 6 miles.
Okay.
Just down there. So you don't have to come very close to my house. Okay. I live like 9 miles from It's like on that same road, and it just goes off into the country. And then,